Guruve Gaurachandaya Radhikaya Tadali Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. My Dandavat Pranam devotees, Haribo Sadhan Siddha Prabhuji. So, I want to do a short video. I always say short videos. I don't know how long it will be, but I'm anticipating it should be short so that I can continue with other services that I have to do. But this video is on the nature of humility. Humility obviously is a very important part of Vaishnav Dharma, Vaishnav culture. But what is actually humility? What is the actual meaning of humility? What is the actual application of humility? So I think just by giving some information from our Guru Vargas, from our Purvacharyas, from Sastra, it will help to get a better idea of what humility is and what humility isn't, and some of the pitfalls that may be there when there is a false application of quote humility. So, and I only should be like this, but I was only able to get one hand in. All right, so first, the very definition of humility. There is a verse in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Paripokena Danyasha Krishna Prema Aja Sanvitanyate Prasparam Apyetan Karya Karyam Ikshate. There it defines that humility means that proportionate to our development in Krishna consciousness, that there is an organic, Praspara means mutually nourishing, and Karya means one thing causing another. There is a natural, by the unfoldment of Krishna consciousness, a development of genuine humility. Genuine humility is the result of realization. So Sriman Mahaprabhu, when he was writing Shishashtakam, it's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita that he first wrote Shishashtakam as a bhajan manual based around Harinam to help devotees to practice bhakti to come to the state of perfection. So it says, Purva Ashta Shlokyera Kare Loka Shikshadila. Ashta Shlokyera Ampani Artha Ashwadila. That when Mahaprabhu went to the Gambhira during the last 12 years of his life, after hearing the sonnet which was given by Sri Advaita Acharya to Jagadananda, Mahaprabhu knew it was time to wrap up his pastimes. At that time, then he spent 12 years in Gambhira tasting, among other things, his own writing of Shishashtakam. So it means the Shishashtakam was written both for sadhakas and for those who are siddha. And there are different meanings applicable to the state of sadhana and the state of siddha in the Shishashtakam. This is not a class on Shishashtakam, so I'm not going to go into detail about that. I've given a class, I believe, by the mercy of Gurudev and our Guru Vargas on Shishashtakam, taking the remnants of their discussions on Shishashtakam and narrating the differences in the meanings according to sadhana and siddha. But here, I want to describe humility, and Mahaprabhu was described in the third verse of Shishashtakam, Chenadapi Sunichena Tororapi Evasishuna Manina Mondina Kirtaniya Sadahari. So this comes in the third verse. And the reason it comes in the third verse is because Mahaprabhu was already described in the first verse, Cheto Dapanamajanam Bhava Mahadavagni Navapanam Sreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam. So this second line, Shreya Kairava Chandrika, means that the lotus of good fortune has blossomed. So that lotus of good fortune means the state of bhav. This is the writings of our Guru Vargas. And Vitarana means completely, and Vidyavadu Jivana means, Vidya here means the Samvit Shakti of Swarup Shakti, and Jivana means the life of the knowledge of Krishna is the happiness derived therefrom. So that is called the Ladini Vritti of Swarup Shakti. So here the words Vidyavadu Jivanam indicate the very life of Swarup Shakti. The essence of Swarup Shakti is Samvit and a Ladini, right? The cognition potency which allows us to experience who is Krishna, who are we, and the happiness derived from that, the transcendent blissful state that's derived from that, right? So Mahaprabhu in this second line has already described the nature of Bhav. In the third line, he describes the nature of praying. Anandam Buddhivadhanam Pratipadam Puna Amrita Shwadanam. So he's describing here the progressive stages of praying, from Bhav to Prem, Sneha, Man, Pranaya, Rag, Anurag to Mahabhav. Mahabhav will come as Rud, Adirud. In Adirud, it will come to Modan, Mohan, and Modanakya Mahabhav only in Radhika herself. Right? So the third line is describing Prem. And then he says, Savatma Snapanam, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. All of this is present in the name of Krishna. So then in the second verse he says, Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shakti. So I've realized that all of this that I've described in that first verse is present in Sri Nam. So all Shakti is present in Sri Nam. And Tatarapita Niyamita Smaranena Kala. That because this Nam at that stage is realized in Rag Marg, means in the process of Rag, it is really not born from the rule and regulation of Vaidhi, but it is born from the spontaneous attraction developed in the Rag Marg. So in the Rag Marg, lobe or greed can't be regulated. It doesn't mean we don't follow regulations in our sadhaka roop. It simply means that the lobe, the greed for that particular service is not regulated. So he's saying to take Harinam, because Harinam is the object of that greed, that transcendental lobe, then Niyamita Smaranena Kala. There's no niyam, no rule and regulation for how to love, have greed for the service of Sri Harinam. Understand? So this is the meaning here. But then he says another very important thing. Etadrasi tava kripa bhagavan mamapi dur daivam idrisami hajanu na anurag. But I don't have any rag, any deep attachment for this holy name. So what is it that spawned this sudden realization or this sudden upsurge of mood in Mahaprabhu that he makes this statement? Because, as I mentioned in the beginning, by the definition of humility, when one realizes the glory of bhakti, it immediately gives rise to a natural state of humility. You understand? So actual realization. So remember, because I remember, paripakena danyasha, pakka means mature, realized. Real dainya bhav is the realized state, Krishna ajasam vidanyate, of being Krishna conscious. So this then begs the question, is every expression of humility, even in our practicing state, is that truly humility? Or is it perhaps the abhas or shadow of humility? And then even more examination, is it sometimes a sense of false egoism acting in an extraordinary way to protect our ego? Because false egoism, its job is to protect the idea of us being the ahamkara. This is what is the technical name for false egoism, is ahamkara. So ahamkara means I am the karna, means the cause, and the karta of everything in my purview, or everything in my existence. Having that mood naturally leads to I am the cause, I am the doer, hence I am the enjoyer. So it is called kartita bhav, means I believe I'm the cause and the doer. The natural outcome of that is I'll feel like I should be the enjoyer. So the false egoism in tandem with the avidya shakti, right, what makes us think we're something other than a servant of Krishna. I've mentioned these things many times, so I'm not going to reiterate it again here. But the combination of that false egoism and the avidya shakti is what protects our sensibility materially of the false identity that we have, the particular upadi we have in this karmic iteration. Upadi means a designation. I think I'm John Doe, born to the Doe family, etc. I've gone over these things before. So humility, especially when bhakti is being practiced within the modes of material nature still and has not into the platform of even ruchi, what to speak of a shakti or a sudasattva in the stage of bhav, then being under the influence of the modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the false egoism is still present. And so the false egoism can also take the quality of humility, bring it under its usage, and manifest it as a way of protecting our material sensibilities. Let me give you an example. Normally, if we encounter someone whom we may feel has some superior quality in relation to bhakti than we do, we can sometimes, because of the modes of nature, develop some enviousness, right? Envy is not always a gross, malicious feeling. Actually, in Sanskrit, like in Srimad Bhagavatam, it mentions, Dhamma projita kaita votra paramo nimatsaranam satam. So the word matsari in Sanskrit means envy, but here, paramo nimatsaranam satam means those sadhus, those saintly persons who've given up self-interest based on their material identity and therefore are free from matsarya. And here the word matsarya means their self-interest over the interest of others. So it doesn't mean just malicious envy as we think of it in the material context, but it means the feeling of needing to find our self-interest even above the self-interest of others, whether that is gross or subtly enacted. So when the false egoism captures the sensibility of humility, it can become a politically correct status in a social environment. Let me explain what I'm talking about. To give an example, someone does a very amazing kirtan, right? By rag and tal standards, it's a very amazing kirtan. After the kirtan, many devotees will approach and say, "Oh, Prabhuji, Mataji, that kirtan was absolutely amazing." And the devotee naturally, a combination of many factors. This is not always an absolute case. I'm just giving the variables here. And then, to put it on as the shoe fits is the saying, right? But what happens is there's a tendency we could say, "Oh, no, Prabhu, I'm nothing," right? So really, the power of that kirtan, or any ability, just like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "I am the ability in man," but more, especially in bhakti, whatever bhakti opulence, for lack of a better word, is expressed by a devotee, the source of the power of that is the Shakti coming from Guru. So if a devotee gives an extremely nice class, and devotees will say, "Oh, Mataji, Prabhuji, very, very nice class," the initial fact that should come in the heart of the devotee is, "Only by the mercy of my Guru Dev." So, isn't it not the same to simply say, "Oh, no, Prabhuji, I don't know anything"? The issue might arise by analysis of it, by saying I don't know anything, would indicate that what I just spoke, which was so inspiring or so appreciated by devotees, had actually come from me, but because it is politically correct to be humble, and I don't want to appear to not have humility by saying, yes, that was an amazing class, wasn't it?" Right? So in order to avoid that, my false egoism gives me the aid of saying, use the sensibility of humility to not only cover, right, maybe the sense of embarrassment you may have by being glorified, that's also one thing, but also to cover the idea that in addition to being very good kirtaniya or very good speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Sastra, that I'm also very humble. So when you think about me, not only think about my expertise in kirtan, puja, speaking, but please also remember that I'm also very humble, because that's also another quality. So it's very subtle, but this is a trick of the false egoism. You understand? But in the heart, when genuine humility is starting to arise, one realizes that whatever manifests from them in terms of bhakti, in terms of realizations, and those realizations being expressed in the mood of their kirtan, in the mood of their pravachan, their speaking, in the mood of their Thakurji seva, how they address Thakurji, all of that is the opulence and power of the Shakti of their Guru Pada Padma. Understand? It is the Shakti of my Gurudev, is the mercy of Gurudev. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his bhajan, O Hey Vaishnav Thakur, he mentions Ekakya ma nahi pai bal, Harinama Sankirtane. So here there's kind of two meanings. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying Ekakya ma nahi pai bal. By myself, I find no Shakti, no power. Bala means power. Harinam Sankirtane. It could, one meaning, in order to realize the name of Krishna. Another meaning, though I'm chanting the name of Krishna, I find no power. Why? Ekakya because I'm seeing I'm alone. And alone I have no power to access Harinam. Ataha Shri Krishna Namani Nabhavat Grayam Indriya. The material senses cannot access the Chintamani root of Harinam. Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Ras Vigraha. Harinam is Chaitanya Ras Vigraha. It is the actual embodiment of all Chinmaya Rasa of the spiritual world. The highest form of Divya Prem is present in Harinam. My material tongue, my material sensibilities can't access that. But though the name, even its form as a bas, can purify me. Understand? Therefore, Jiva Goswami is saying in Bhakti Sandarbha, Praptamam Nam Nam Sudha Antakaram Artha Apeksham. In the beginning of taking Harinam, Sudha Antakaram, it purifies the Antakaram, means the subtle body, the mind, intelligence, and the false egoism. So I realize the Nam could do that, but I have no realization of the Chinmaya nature of Sri Nam. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying here, alone, I don't have this power. But Krishna Shaitu Mara Krishna Datti Paroto Mara Sakatiyachi. Oh Vaishnav Thakur, you have Krishna, means you have that transcendental Divya Nam. More than that, Krishna Saitu Mara, Krishna Ditti Paro, and you have the power to give to others. Therefore, Amitu Kangal, I've entered a state of humility and madness, right? Giving up any sensibility of my false egoism being the genesis of my unfoldment in bhakti, and realizing everything is only coming from the lotus feet and the Shakti of my Guru Parapadma. So now he's saying, Amitu Kangal, Krishna Krishna Boli. Now I'm yelling Krishna's name in great humility. Daya Tava Pache Pache. And I'm running. You understand? Here he's saying I'm doing Anugatya, means following the Vaishnava, because this is our means of ascension in bhakti. We do Anugatya to the sadhu. You understand? This is our process. Right? But he's saying here, he's giving expression to it. Dava, what is it? Amitu Kangal, Krishna Krishna Boli, Daya Tava Pache Pache. I'm running after you. So it means he's not only following the sadhu, but with deep mood, intention, eagerness, enthusiasm, patience, confidence, all expressed by Rupa Goswami Pad in Upadeshamrita. I'm this way following the Vaishnava. And therefore he's thinking, I don't have anything but the lotus feet of Sadhu Guru. So if someone says, oh, the kirtan is very nice, how you dress your Thakurji is very nice, you prepared bhoga very nicely and offered to Thakurji, your pravachan, your speaking was very nice, then immediately in the heart of that person who is truly unfolding in humility, they think, this is the mercy of my Guru. You understand? By thinking like that, ourselves are completely removed from the equation. Ekakiyama nahi paibal. I have no power independently. So immediately the source of whatever was good about whatever I've done in bhakti, immediately it brings remembrance of my Guru Parapadma. It is only the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. It is only mercy of my Guru Parapadma. Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. It is the mercy of my Guru. And then your Guru Dev's name. Understand? So like this is the real birth of genuine humility. You understand? Humility has another feature. It is called Dainya Bhav as one of the 33 Sanchari Bhavs in the state of Bhakti Rasa. Bhakti Rasa, I've mentioned before, of course, many devotees have, and it's written in our Sastra. When there is a Stai Bhav, and that Stai Bhav mixes with Vibhav. Vibhav means Alamban and Udipan. The word Alamban means the Vishaya of Bhakti, which is Sri Krishna himself, and the Asraya, which is the particular eternal associate who has the kind of mood of love we desire to have towards serving Krishna. The ultimate Ashraya Jati is Srimati Radhika herself. Understand? So Ashraya Vishaya, this is called the Lamban. Udipan means those things which stimulate that love. Then there's Anubhavs, the feelings that naturally flow as a result of realizing those things. They are called Anubhavs. And there are two kinds of Anubhavs, Udbhaswara and Satvik. So Udbhaswara means those Anubhavs which come as an expression of our consciousness. You understand? Just a natural expression of our consciousness, and there's some intellectual application there. Like if somebody gives you very good news and you clap your hands and you're happy, you're giving expression, but that expression is willed from knowledge of the good event or good news, and you're replying to it by an emotional expression. When you receive news that overwhelms your sensibilities and causes you to faint or to cry or to feel a sense of devastation, in the course of Bhakti Rasa, these are called Sattvic Vikar. They're 8 in number, of course. Then there are 33 Sanchari Bhavs, meaning different feelings which Rupa Goswami has compared to. He's compared the Sthai Bhav, your permanent sentiment or mood, to an ocean. In an ocean there are waves, and those waves rise up and then they crest and fall back into the ocean. So Sanchari Bhavs are compared to this, right? So one of those Sanchari Bhavs is Dainya Bhav. Like an example, Srimati Radhika, when she's speaking in the 47th chapter of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is called Brahmara Geet. And there are 10 different kinds of speech that come under the influence of Divya Unmad, means a transcendental madness of praying. In those different kinds of speeches, they're called Chitra Jalpa, so there's Prajalpa, Aljalpa, Vijalpa, so there's 10 different kinds. And in one of those expressions, there is the expression of humility. At that time, Dainya Bhava arises in the heart of Srimati Radhika, much like I described here in Shishastakam, and realizing a particular thing, causing the upsurge of this Dainya Bhav, the expression of humility takes place greatly. So the Shishastakam that I used earlier is also a perfect example of that. That Mahaprabhu realizing, tasting the glory of bhakti, he gives the expression that any sadhaka who's practicing, if they will realize what is bhav, they'll realize what is praying, realize the glory of bhakti, then automatically an overwhelming feeling of Trenadapi Sunich will come. Even if a person genuinely does Saranagati, Saranagati is composed of 6 limbs, Anukulyasya Sankapa, Pratikulyasya Vajjanam. The first realization a devotee has is, Prapati, I want to surrender to Guru and Krishna. But what power do I have to do that? I have some minute free will. I'll exercise that minute free will by surrendering to the Guru. Right? Guru Padasraya. This is Rupa Goswami's first instruction in bhakti process. Guru Padasraya, Tasmat Krishna Dikshari Shikshanam Vishrambena Guru Seva. Sadhu Vatmanu Vatmanam. Right? These are the first 5 sort of things that are given of surrender to the process. So here, surrender means I'll manifest that by doing what is favorable. Anukulyasya Sankalp. I'll take a vow to do what is favorable. That's why at Harinam initiation even, I'll show the Prabhupada just say take a vow that you will not commit sinful activities like meat eating, intoxication, gambling, etc., or illicit sex. Of course, these things are extremely unfavorable to bhakti. You understand? But actually, Anukulyasya Sankalp means I'll do all the things that are favorable to bhakti and avoid what is unfavorable. So there are many things besides these 4, but these 4 things were sort of the pillars of sinful life. So Srila Prabhupada used those as the basis under which to take your Sankalpa vow that I will chant Harinam, surrender to Guru, do seva, attend the morning program, etc., etc. That's the Anukulyasya Sankalp, the vow to do what's favorable. That same vow becomes applicable. I will not do sinful life. I'll not do things which are unfavorable to bhakti. You understand? Then it says, Rakshishiti Vishwas. I'll also have a conviction. What is that conviction? Rakshishiti Vishwas, Gotrave Varanam Tata. That beyond that, I have no doership. I have no power. Again, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Ekaki Amar Nahi Pai Bhav. So therefore, I trust that Guru and Krishna will protect me on the path of bhakti and maintain my power to execute the process of bhakti. When the devotee realizes that by genuinely doing sadhanagati, atma nikshep karpanya, one fully gives themselves to that conception. Karpanya means then they become extremely humble, like Trenadapi, Sunich. You understand? So this is the actual definitions, explanations, and applications of humility. And I also mentioned some of the misapplied ideas of humility. Now, sometimes humility is misapplied just because of being unaware truly of what humility is, which is part of the reason why I'm speaking these things for my own edification, always for one, and for two, to offer them to the Vaishnava Mando, and for those who may need to hear it, right? What is actually humility? Now, it could be asked, well, Mukunda, you're saying if somebody comes and they compliment some aspect of my devotional life, and I genuinely feel emotionally like I'm very fallen, why can't I express that? Because we want to keep the purity of the conception of humility as it is in our aspirational mood. Because essentially in that verse, Paripakena Danyasha Krishna Premaja Sanditanyate, it's equating humility with realization of Krishna consciousness. You understand? So a person can say, well, wait a minute, Mukunda, I have some realization that I'm very fallen. So in one sense, we have some sensibility of being fallen, but the realization of it is another thing. I'm giving an example. If you put your hand in an open flame, you quickly realize that it's very hot, and you quickly make the adjustment to remove yourself from that condition. So if we say we have realization that I'm truly fallen, right? And the pain that should come from being in the position of being truly fallen should immediately ignite a unfoldment in bhakti to get out of the state of being fallen, just as putting your hand in the fire creates an immediate reaction to remove your hand. So though we may have a sensibility and even an emotional, based on our material sensibilities, have an emotional feeling towards humility, we have to understand it may not be the genuine thing yet, because then we may go back in the states in which we participate in fallen activity. Or we may find ourselves doing things which are not favorable to bhakti, etc., etc. You understand? So, but what is it? It could be the abhas of humility. Abhas means like a shadow of humility, because there is something there that a person has come and surrendered to the process. A person is chanting Harinam. A person is coming to hear a Harikatha. A person is doing seva to Thakurji in the temple, etc. Person has guru, everything. So certainly the abhas of humility is there. Now, if the abhas of humility is there, the way to then utilize or apply humility is to say, I realize I don't have anything, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and everything is only the power of my Gurudev. If I'm very excellent at doing Sankirtan and distributing books, from whose power am I deriving that ability? Guru and Krishna. If I have the ability to speak very nicely or something, from where is that power coming? Guru and Krishna. If I've decorated the Thakurji and all devotees are very amazed at the way I've arranged the Sringar, everything of Thakurji, whose power is that? So in this way, every single circumstance of our presentations and services in bhakti, when you look at original causation of that, you have to go back. This is all the mercy of Guru and Krishna. So if I habituate myself to saying that, it reinforces that in my heart and allows true humility to eventually manifest. Not just the abhas, but true humility. On the other hand, if I hang on to the concept of humility as something I can always put forward to cover feelings of shyness, embarrassment, not wanting to be glorified, or in a more inappropriate way, as a way to cover for enviousness of something. For instance, you hear somebody give a very nice kirtan, and then you point out the faults in the kirtan. Yeah, but you know, Srila Prabhupada never liked all of this, like and singing and all these different notes and all these things. It might be very well true, right? But the sensibility to criticize it, there's two different things. There is criticism and critiquing. I did a whole class on this. So criticizing something is to look at the faults or virtues of something and then with malice, born of false egoism, right, to criticize that thing, right? I'm not looking at the faults and virtues for any other reason than to validate my criticizing that thing. Criticism is another level. Criticism is to look at the faults and virtues of something, but to be detached from it. I don't really care about the outcome. I'm going to point it out, but I don't really have a vested interest in how to make it better. I'm just pointing it out, right? So it's not as malicious as criticizing. At the same time, the sort of neutral disposition that I'm not really interested in the better outcome of that thing is criticism. Critiquing something is looking at the faults and virtues, and even though all those words are synonyms, I'm giving a different application intentionally. Critiquing something is weighing the faults and virtues of something with the intention of how to make it better. First in myself, and then applying it to a larger scope. But how to make that better first in myself, and then expanding in a larger scope to others or to other situations, applied as it may be necessary. You understand? So when humility comes in that level, it comes from the platform of pure humility down to the level of humility in the form of an abbas, a shadow of humility, and most of that comes from the shyness of devotees in the practice, right? So devotee feels some shyness in being glorified. So that abbas of humility is actually not a bad thing at all. But if we train ourselves to accept the glorification as an offering to the lotus feet of Guru, it becomes more powerful in our development than simply taking first account of our shyness in that environment. So many devotees are glorifying me, so I'm feeling uncomfortable. So I'll protect myself by the standardized verbiage of humility, and that'll give me some shelter from this embarrassing feeling. So that is not super bad, right? But when it turns into, again, being weaponized sometimes and being a mask for envy or lack of appreciation of devotees, etc., then humility is operating in a weaponized fashion and it's not good, right? Another weaponization of humility is to create a standard by which I will always be, to some degree, in a superior position. And I may boast of that by various things, like my tenure in bhakti, how long I've been a devotee, whom I'm initiated by, what my status in the institutional environment is. Do I have a post or a position, etc., etc. You understand? And that will go all the way up to the idea of Guru Abhiman, right? I am a guru and I have disciples. So that whole mentality will breed a certain level of weaponized humility in some cases, or humility abbas, right? If it's not societally, if that's the right word, detrimental, it can become humility abbas, right? That somebody's taken on the service of giving Harinam and Diksha, so forth, so on, but they have some attachment to the idea I am Guru, right? So now when somebody glorifies them, there is an intrinsic guilt around the idea of feeling myself to be Guru, right? So I cover that with a great deal of humility. You understand? At least expression of humility. But inwardly, if I'm tasting that glorification is, yes, I'm Guru and I have disciples, it's Guru Abhiman, and it's extremely dangerous. This is what Raghunath Das Goswami mentions in Manasiksha. Pratishta ashta drashta sopacha ramani riri meinatet kattam sadhu prema sprasati suchihe. That pure prema can never enter the heart where pratishta asha, the desire for name, fame, adoration is there. But this name and fame being a companion of false egoism, drash, it is so audacious that it dances in the heart, and then so many adjectives are added. An outcast, dog-eating prostitute. Right? Raghunath Das Goswami gives so much expression to the audacity of Pratishta Asha because it's very difficult to recognize. So it ends up prancing in the heart of the aspiring devotee based on some external elements. and the devotee doesn't even really realize it. So, in order to get rid of it, it mentions one should take shelter of the glorious associates of Mahaprabhu, like Swarup Damodar, Rup Goswami, his elder brother Sanatana Goswami, meaning also our whole Guru Vargas, and especially our own Guru Pada-Padma. Right? By taking shelter of the service to them, it removes this tendency of Pratishta Asha. So one of the things that happens from that, however, is that on an institutional basis, it puts kind of categorizations on devotees. And if the devotee bucks, so to speak, that boxing of their position or that boxing of their bhakti, then they're considered to be not humble. You understand? If you question something, it could be considered not humble. If you disagree with something or you see something that is in discord with actual Sudha Bhakti and you point it out, you're not being humble. You understand? So when it's in a societal way weaponized, it could cause this kind of thing, where devotees become too shy to speak up, or too shy to ask questions, or too shy to express growth in bhakti. So what happens is then devotees become forced, in the name of humility, to accept a certain ceiling to their growth in bhakti. Even though it's not presented that way, so the devotee thinks, oh yes, I'm growing. But then when they do a self-analysis, or when that analysis comes up against a situation in which bhakti beyond the ceiling that they've been put under is expressed, they're grasping. Should I go for it? Should I not go for it? Is that something else? Is it in line with what we do? You understand? These kind of feelings arise of confusion, because the weaponization of humility has put those particular group of devotees in a situation where they feel there's a certain ceiling that should not be breached, right? Just like a very, very dear friend of mine in devotee, he expressed to me the other day, there was an example given of that there's a certain insect that jumps, and normally they jump very high. I can't remember the insect he mentioned, but he said in order to train them as an experiment, they used to take those insects and they would put a lid on the container in which they were existing. So the insects would still jump, but they would only jump until they bumped into the ceiling that was placed there, the lid that was placed there. So he said after some time, when they removed the lid, they found that those insects, as opposed to insects that had not been put in the experiment, would only jump to the level where that lid had previously been. He gave another example of an elephant. When elephants are very young, because of their extreme power and size, they train elephants by chaining them and tying them to a post. So the elephant, when they're too young to be able to pull themselves away from the post, even though they continually may try, and so they reconcile that I have this this inability to pull myself away from the post. So when they grow up, right, then still, if they've been trained with this mentality, and then the person takes a rope even, ties the rope around a post to a fully grown elephant, the elephant feels they will not be able to pull themselves away. Because they've been trained, it's been instilled in them from the time they were very young, that when you see a post and you see a binding element, then that means you're tied up. So even though obviously at the size that elephant is, and with the power it has, it could easily pull up the stake, the post, the chain, everything. But the conditioning, the mental conditioning is there. So in the same way, when humility is weaponized as a control mechanism, don't breach humility, right? Because it's not Vaishnava to breach humility, then it creates also sort of a bad environment, for lack of a better word. Okay, last thing is that how do we then express humility, right? Besides you're telling us that we should attribute everything to Guru and Sadhu, right? How else do we do that? We also do that by Vaishnava etiquette. You understand? So Sastras laid out Vaishnava etiquette. So we honor those who have tenure in bhakti. How they accept that honor is their humility, right? That's the portfolio of their humility. Our humility is we give our Dandavat Pranam to those devotees who are senior to us. We Dandavat Pranam devotees who are initiated, who are our equals. And we give full regard and surrender ourselves to those devotees who are self-realized. Nindati Sunya Hridoy Ipsita Sangalabhya. Right? Those who are realized devotees, their association is very desirable. We feel ourselves blessed to be in their association. But even those Dikshati Chet, Pajantam Isham, those who've accepted bona fide Vaishnava Diksha, we also offer our obeisances to them. And we also offer respects even to those who've taken the chanting of Harinam. Understand? Even if they're brand new devotees at chanting, we have some regard for them. You understand? And similarly, Raghunath Das Goswami has expressed in the first verse of Manasiksha, Guru Goshte Goshtaleshu Sujane Bur Surgane. We also offer respect. Sujan means other Vaishnava Sampradayas. Bur Surgane means Brahmins and other saints. So we also offer our respects to them as well. Right? In this way, we can exercise humility by the given guidelines of Vaishnava Sadachar, right? And at the same time, always inwardly realizing my power in bhakti is derived from the mercy of Sri Guru and Krishna. Understand? Alright, so hopefully this was helpful. And certainly if there's any questions or so forth, devotees can write in the comments, and I will attempt to try to answer it. I'll try to answer it right here, but if necessary, then I can expand on it in another video. But it's very, very important because Mahaprabhu was saying, if you want to chant the holy name, then you need to be Trinadapi Sunich. Alright, my Dandavat Pranam Vancha Kalpaturvischa Kripa Sindhavevcha Patitanam Pavanavyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namah Jai Radhe Radhe.